Good afternoon. We are now on the video record. Today is Tuesday, the 12th day of July, 2016. The time is 1:06 p.m. We are here at 444 Seabreeze Boulevard, Daytona Beach, Florida, for the purpose of taking the video deposition of Officer Christopher Pearsall, taken by the plaintiff in case number 6-14-CV-00536-ORL-22-VAB. Case Aviana Bailey versus Chief Michael Chitwood, which is filed in the U.S. District Court, Middle District of Florida, Orlando Division. The court reporter is Melanie Safran of U.S. Legal Support, and I am Stephen Gresser, the videographer, also of U.S. Legal Support. Will all counsel please state their appearance for the record, and then the court reporter will swear any witness.
John Phillips and Brent Latour on behalf of Aviana Bailey and her minor child.
I'm Bruce Bogan, here for the defendants in the case.
Sir, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear that the testimony you're about to give in this cause will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
Would you please state your full name for the record?
Yes, sir. My name is Officer Chris Pearsall, Pearsall.
Thank you. Officer Pearsall, where are you currently employed?
Currently employed with the Daytona Beach Police Department. I've been there since March of 2011.
Okay. Do you know what we're here about today?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And you were a witness to the events that happened in April of 2012 regarding Aviana Bailey?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My name's John Phillips. I represent Ms. Bailey and her minor child. We're going to have some questions for you today. It is my utmost responsibility, and I take it very seriously, to ask you questions you understand.
Yes, sir.
If I've used words, if I've mumbled, if I've done anything as a long question as lawyers sometimes do, it's just let me know that I've done that, because I want to communicate with you, because you've sworn to tell the truth. It's important.
Yes, sir.
By that same token, because we're dealing with a written record, yeses and nos are preferred to ahas and ahs, because they can be, that's subject to interpretation later on.
Yes, sir.
If you need to take a break for any reason, feel free to do so. This shouldn't take all afternoon. We should be, in and out in a matter of an hour or two. That all fair?
Yes, sir.
I assume you're not under the influence of any medication that would affect either your ability to testify today or recollect the events.
Correct. No, sir.
Okay. And have you ever been charged or convicted of a crime?
No, sir.
Okay. We talked about where you're employed. How were you employed by Daytona Beach Police?
Under what capacity do I work?
Certainly.
I'm a full-time police officer within the city.
Are there particular watches, divisions, assignments?
Yes, sir. I'm currently assigned to the K-9 unit.
Okay.
I've been there for officially about 3.5 months.
Okay. What do you do with the K-9 unit?
Just patrol the streets, violent, forcible felonies, things of that nature.
Okay. What was your assignment in April of 2012?
I was assigned to the Delta West Patrol Division on that date.
What is Delta West Patrol?
It's the west side of the city. It's from the tracks out to the western border of the city. And Delta is just the scheduled rotation.
Okay. What hours were you working?
At that time, I believe it was 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. I was still a late car.
Where were you, to the best of your recollection, when you first got a call related to this matter?
I was on Bevel Road, just west of Clyde Morse.
Okay. And what was your first indication that there was something going on?
Excuse me. Dispatch informed us of a man at the airport with a gun.
Okay. What were your, kind of the same question that I asked about your duties now, what were your duties then? What kind of crimes or situations would you handle then?
Exactly this. Any kind of dispatch call, you're going to respond to.
Okay. And Tell me what you did from the time you got that call.
I went to the call. I went westbound on Bevel Road and northbound on Williamson, and then back eastbound on Speedway Boulevard. And approached the scene.
Okay, tell me about that.
Came up, I believe I was in front of Daytona International Speedway when Officer Mersereau advised that the car was coming out the wrong way from the airport parking lot. I continued eastbound on International Speedway Boulevard and observed a car with Officer Mersereau's car behind it with his lights on as it made a eastbound turn onto Richard Petty.
Okay. Did that car seem to have any, at that point, did you know whether that car was having any difficulty traveling?
It didn't appear that way to me from where I was.
At some point, we come to know that some or all of the tires were popped.
Yes, sir.
When did you observe that?
I didn't know that. I did see the car spin out on Richard Petty Boulevard.
Spin out at a low rate of speed, medium rate of speed, high rate of speed?
It wasn't fast. I don't know, an average speed.
Okay. And when you say spun out, what do you mean?
I observed basically you're looking at two cars' brake lights, and all of a sudden I watched headlights come around and back in my direction.
Okay. You know the degrees of a circle.
Yes, sir.
Approximately from the spin out, how many revolutions or portions of a revolution in degrees did the car make?
Check the form. Go ahead.
If you recall.
More than a 180, but less than a 360.
Okay. So it would have come back facing headlight to headlight, so to speak, Officer Mercereau's car.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did it stop at that point?
Yes, sir.
What did you see next?
Officer Mersereau exited his vehicle and confronted / approached the suspect vehicle.
From what direction?
He would have traveled northeast-ish.
So we have Officer Mercereau's vehicle and the suspect vehicle facing each other somewhere around Richard Petty Boulevard.
Yes, sir. It was on Richard Petty Boulevard.
Okay. Was any part on a median or in the middle?
I believe the suspect's vehicle was partially on the median.
Okay. And they're, pretty much headlight to headlight. Do you know how much space was in between them? Could you estimate that?
No, sir.
Could you narrow it down at all? 10 car lengths, 5 car lengths, 2 car lengths?
Check the form. Go ahead.
I guess within maybe 1 to 3 car lengths.
Fair enough. And where was your car in relation to the 2 cars stopped on Richard Petty?
I was back a ways to the west of them on Richard Petty Boulevard.
You would have been approaching, coming up towards...
I would have been eastbound facing in the eastern direction on
Okay.
Richard Petty.
And where did your car ultimately stop in relation to those other 2 vehicles?
I believe this deposition says around 80 yards. Let's see. Okay, and then it says 20 yards away from where their cars stopped. So 20 yards away.
What are you refreshing your recollection with?
The deposition from the criminal case.
The criminal case?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Jones?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Who you come to understand is the driver of the suspect vehicle?
Yes, sir.
and you know, you're fine to refresh your recollection. If you have an independent recollection that differs from that, I want to know that.
Right.
And just let me know, or let the record know too, when you're refreshing your recollection.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Did you review that transcript in preparation for today?
Yes,
Did
sir.
you read it?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What else did you do in preparation for today?
This is really it. I read this last night.
Okay. Do you have any meetings with any attorneys, either from the city, the county, the union, or Mr. Bogans?
I met with Mr. Bogans
Okay. How long?
an hour this morning.
Okay. So your vehicle stopped approximately 20 yards from what? Help orient me as best as you can. Jurors sometimes get confused with northwest, east, south.
Okay.
So if best you can, describe for me in relation to cars.
20 yards off of Officer Mersereau's driver's side door.
Okay. How many lanes of traffic are eastbound?
I believe there's 2, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Would you have been in a different lane of traffic than Officer Mersereau's vehicle?
No, sir. I was in the same lane of travel.
Okay. Would you have been directly behind his vehicle then, 20 yards approximately?
No, the way the curve of the road works, he was still on the roadway and I was still on the roadway, just the way the curve was.
Okay. Were you still within the lines of the same lane of traffic?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the curve would have put you at not directly behind, but at some
Right,
angle.
right.
Fair.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And what did you see?
Again, Officer Mersereau got out of the driver's door and approached, challenged the defendant, told him to put his hands up, and then there was an exchange of gunfire.
Okay. Officer Mersereau got out of his driver's side door,
Yes,
correct? Did he walk over to the suspect's driver's side?
I couldn't tell. I don't, as far as depth-wise, I don't know. I remember seeing him on the driver's side, obviously, get out from the driver's door. And then I don't know if he made the turn between the two cars, or I wouldn't imagine him to get between the two cars, but I can't speak for him.
Okay. You don't know whether the shots were fired on the driver's side or passenger side of Officer Mersereau's vehicle?
Objective form.
No, I do not know where the shots were fired from.
By the same token, it's the same question, but I'm going to use the other vehicle.
Yes, sir.
Do you know whether there were shots fired initiated by Officer Mersereau, on whether his shots were initiated on the passenger side or the driver's side of the suspect vehicle?
Objective form. Go ahead.
I have no idea.
Okay. When Officer Mersereau got out of his car, were you driving or parked by that time?
Parked at that time.
Okay. Somewhere behind, approximately 20 yards behind Mersereau. Did you get out of your car?
Yes, sir.
Where did you go?
I kind of froze up. I was probably 6 months on my own at this time, brand new officer.
Right.
I was kind of just in disbelief at what I was hearing and questioning if that was what I was hearing.
Okay. Fair enough. Is with the, I guess, the training and what's going on or what the involvement of an officer's career at City of Daytona Beach. You were 6 months in a car by yourself.
Yes, sir.
Is there any, kind of ride-along requisite before that?
Yes, sir. We have training, field training.
What is that and how long is it?
I believe it's 12 to 14 weeks, and you ride with training officers, depending on where you are in your training. Is how hands-on you are with calls and.
Okay. Did you ride with any of the officers involved in this incident?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you train with any of the officers involved in this incident?
No, sir.
Did you know Officer Mersereau before this incident?
We worked on the same shift, so
Okay.
yes, sir.
Did you know him outside of work in any capacity at the time of this incident?
No, sir.
Okay. Were you, for lack of a better way to put it, you were candid and said that you just kind of stood there and watched, things go down. Were you under cover of your door? Did you stay, did you stay at the wedge where your car or something?
No, I don't even. I think I was next to my car. The door was shut. Yeah, I don't think I had cover or anything like that.
Did you feel that you were in any harm's way, or did you feel that you were being fired upon at any point from the suspect vehicle?
Object form.
Let me re-ask that. A couple questions there. At any point, do you feel you were fired upon by the suspect vehicle?
No.
At any point, do you feel that you were a threat to be fired on by the suspect vehicle?
Object form.
Go on.
You can answer.
I mean, as far as him already exchanging gunfire with someone of the same uniform, yeah, I consider myself to be a threat to him.
Certainly. And let's talk about exchanging. We're referring just exclusively to the Richard Petty scene, okay?
Yes, sir.
Did you see Marvin Jones have a gun at that scene at any point?
No, sir.
Did you hear anything other? I believe there was some discussion in the FDLE or maybe your deposition about hearing uniform or multiple caliber or different sounds of gunfire. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, sir.
Did you hear more than one sound of gunfire from one particular weapon?
Object form. Go ahead.
I believe I did, yes.
Okay. What did you hear?
One was a more muffled shot than the other. One was loud and crisp, and the other one was, like I said, just muffled.
Okay. Did Mr. Jones ever get out of his car?
Not that exclusively to Richard
We're
Petty.
exclusively to Richard Petty.
Not that I know of, no.
Did Miss Bailey ever get out of the car?
Not that I know of, no.
Did you see Mr. Jones? I think I asked this, but let me re-ask it. Did you see Mr. Jones with any sort of firearm or weapon at that scene?
No, sir, I did not.
Did you see Miss Bailey with any sort of firearm or weapon at that scene?
Object form. Go ahead.
No, sir.
What was that objection?
Because you haven't established that he knew Miss Bailey was in the car, so how could he say that she
certainly.
had or did or didn't have
Fair
a gun?
enough. Very good. Do you know who Miss Bailey is for purposes of today?
I know who she is now, yes,
Okay.
sir.
Did you know at that scene that there was a passenger in the vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay. From the passenger's compartment, did you see anybody possess or attempt to use a firearm or any sort of weapon?
Object form. Go ahead.
No, sir.
Okay. From anywhere in that vehicle, did you see any firearm or any attempted use of a firearm or any other weapon?
Object form. Go ahead.
No, sir.
Okay. Walk me through what you saw Officer Mersereau do.
He went up to confront the vehicle. The exchange of gunfire happened. Officer Mersereau began backpedaling. He tripped over a curb and actually fell down like a slight slope towards the fence.
Where in timing relationship, were his shots compared to his tripping?
Object form. Go ahead.
I'm not sure. Maybe within a second.
Okay. That might have been a bad question. Did Mersereau fire any shots before he fell?
Yes, sir.
Did he fire any shots before he started tripping?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many?
No, sir.
Do you know how many he fired, if any, during his initial trip?
Check the form.
No, sir.
You don't know if he did or didn't?
No, sir.
Do you know if he fired any shots while he was falling?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Why?
Like I said, I feel like there was a gap there where he was at that point just trying to get away and get to cover himself. But I can't be for certain.
Okay. And while he was on the ground, what part of him, as best as you recall, was on what type of ground?
All of his body went onto grass.
Okay. What? Technically, unless he's rolling around, it's not all of his body, but you know, you get my point.
Yeah.
What was it? Was it his backside, front side, side, left side, right side?
I would imagine he would fall straight to his back.
Okay. Are you imagining? And I'm not trying to pick on you, but I've got
Yes,
to
sir.
be,
Yes,
I've
sir.
got to
I
be
understand.
detailed.
I understand.
Let him finish his question before you start to answer, because if you and him are
Yep.
talking at the same time, it's not good for the record, and
Okay.
you're not going to hear his whole question.
Yes,
So
sir.
just, I know you can anticipate what he's going to say, you just got to wait and let the question come out.
Yes, sir.
100%. What? And again, I asked, because you use the term imagine, and sometimes we just say things. But as best as you recall, what portion of Officer Mersereau's body landed on what surface?
His back would land on the grass.
Okay. Which would have been the middle portion of Richard Petty?
No, sir. The south portion. The defendant's car was on the median, and Officer Merceau's car was on the roadway. And these are the eastbound lanes of travel, then the curb, and then the grass.
Okay. So he would have been over here or over here? The top
His
of the-
his driver's side, I believe.
Okay. So there would have been a lane, if, as best as you recall, there were two lanes here, and there would have been a lane, and he would have fallen to the driver's side, on the driver's side of his vehicle
Check
across another lane?
the form.
The road would have been kind of curving this way.
Okay.
So the curb over here would have been directly behind his car.
Okay.
And the road kind of went
Okay.
this way. So the defendant's car is what's the funny angle here.
Okay. Once he was on the ground, did he fire further shots?
No, sir.
After he landed on the ground, did he fire further shots?
No, sir.
What happened then?
He stood back up, and that's when he said, "That motherfucker just shot at me."
Did you see any shots fired or any projectiles coming towards Officer Mersereau?
Check the form.
No, sir.
Did you? It's my understanding that Officer Mersereau has a position that while he was down, he heard shots land around him. Did you hear gunfire, projectiles strike pavement or grass, or see any evidence of that?
No,
Form.
sir.
Go ahead.
No, sir.
Did you ever find any shell casings or spent bullets from the suspect vehicle?
No, sir.
Did you ever endeavor to do such an investigation or look for this?
I did on the second scene at Flightline.
Okay. And we're gonna get to that one.
Yes, sir.
When did you first become aware that there was a passenger in the so-called suspect vehicle?
Almost the end of it all at Flightline. When Mr. Jones ended up going to the ground, I went to run towards Officer Mersereau to help him detain Mr. Jones, and I almost ran past the suspect vehicle, and that's when, for the name change, but Officer Dill at the time, now Officer Beers, started giving commands at the passenger of the vehicle. I was already up, essentially next to the gas tank of the.
And we'll come back to that.
Okay.
What is the service weapon issued, or are there different service weapon issues to officers of the City of Daytona Beach?
We have the Glock 40 caliber.
Okay. Officer Mercer would have had the same firearm.
Yes, sir.
Regarding Officer Merceau's fall, did you see essentially what caused his fall biomechanically? Let me explain what I mean by that. Did you see whether he rolled his ankle, his knee turned, how he came to fall, whether he was backpedaling and tripped, how he came to fall?
Objective form, go ahead.
I think he just hit the curb. His feet were backpedaling and he hit the curb.
Okay. At any point during any scene, any point during this night, did you see Marvin Jones, the person who you came to know as Marvin Jones, reload a firearm at any point?
No, sir.
Did you examine Marvin Jones's firearm at the end of everything, when things were gone and you guys could get it into police custody?
No, sir.
As we sit here today, do you know how many times Marvin Jones successfully fired his firearm?
No, sir.
I'm going to ask it a different way. Do you know how many projectiles were fired from Marvin Jones' firearm at any point that night?
No, sir.
Do you know whether there were indications of misfire from let me start all over. Do you know if there were indications of misfire of Marvin Jones' firearm from that night?
I recall some kind of misfire being told to me much later than the night of.
As far as you're aware, other than Officer Mersereau, has any other officer indicated that he or she saw a firearm from the suspect vehicle at Richard Petty?
Has any officer told me about a firearm?
Yes.
No, sir.
Other than Officer Mersereau?
Correct.
Was Officer Dill on the scene before you? I know he's had a name change, but I'm going to go with that.
Okay, we'll stick with Dill. No, I was there, and I don't know how Officer Dill and Officer Carter got there. From what I've read from my transcripts of the criminal case, I think I thought that they came from around Mr. Jones's vehicle. I don't know if I base that on the direction their car was. I don't know.
Okay, that's fine. Did you come to know at any point, let's talk about that report of somebody waving a firearm at the airport, right?
Okay.
That's what started this?
Yes, sir.
Did you come to find out whether that report was factually true or not?
All I recall is that dispatch was reporting county airport units chasing a man in the parking lot.
Okay. Before that, there was some waving of a gun,
That's, I think, what the call came out as.
and thus people responded.
Right.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Law enforcement. Do you know, at what point, even including today, at what point did you find out that report, that someone was waving a firearm and that person was Marvin Jones, was a false report?
Check the form.
Do I have knowledge, or when did I find out? Is that the question?
Correct.
There was speculation of it when we sat back and thought about it, when I sat back and thought about it, but I don't recall when, and I don't think it was ever confirmed for me.
Okay. Did you have any involvement with any investigation to determine whether that was a false report or investigate the person who may have made a false report?
Check the form.
No, sir.
Did you give any orders to anyone in the suspect vehicle at the Richard Petty scene?
At the Richard Petty scene, no.
Correct. Did you say anything that you recall at the Richard Petty scene?
Just Officer Dylan Carter asking if those were actual gunshots.
Tell me about that.
I just turned to him and said, "Were those gunshots?" And that's right at the time that Officer Mersereau stood up and confirmed that he had just shot at him.
Okay. Were you surprised that Officer Mersereau fired his firearm?
Check the form.
Surprised? I mean, I don't really know. Surprised? Not really. No, he's a SWAT guy. He's tactfully sound, and if a threat presents himself,
Certainly. And what I'm trying to determine is what threat presented itself, right?
okay.
And from that perspective, I'm going to ask you that question. What threat presented itself that you saw, heard, or otherwise became aware of
At what point?
at the Richard Petty scene?
Object to the form. Go ahead.
Saw nothing. Heard. I heard two distinctly different weapons exchanging fire.
At what precise moment, as best as you can narrow it down?
As Officer Mersereau exited his vehicle and went to confront the suspect vehicle.
Okay, and what did you hear?
Again, two different firearms being fired at the same time.
How many do you know the sound of the 40 caliber Glock?
I mean, if you could play it on an audio speaker, and I wouldn't be able to positively tell you that is without a doubt what that is, no.
Okay. You indicated to some extent that the two sounds were at the same time. do you have any recollection or any clarification about which sound came first?
Object to form.
No, sir.
Are you aware of whether any of those sounds came from the passenger side of the so-called suspect vehicle?
Object to form.
No, I wouldn't. No.
Okay. Did you see any smoke or, gun exhaust, so to speak, coming from the suspect vehicle or its vicinity?
Object to form.
No, sir.
Did you see any muzzle flashes come from the suspect vehicle or its vicinity?
No, sir.
You know what a muzzle flash is?
Yes, sir.
Okay. What commands did you hear Officer Mersereau make to any of the occupants of the suspect vehicle?
I think it was hands, show me your hands, or give me 1 second. No. Yeah, hands, show me your hands.
Okay, at what point?
As he's exiting the vehicle.
As
Officer,
Marvin
excuse
Jones?
me, no, I'm sorry, excuse me, as Officer Mersereau is exiting his patrol vehicle.
Do you know at that point whether the suspect vehicle had its window up, either window up or down?
No idea.
Okay. Do you know whether the suspect vehicle had radio or air conditioning on at that point?
No, sir.
Okay. Do you know whether that command was heard by anybody in the suspect vehicle?
Object to form.
No, it was loud and clear for me to hear 20 yards west of him.
Okay. Were you already outside of your car at that point?
Yes, sir.
I assume, let me rephrase, the hands, show me your hands comment came before any gunshots were fired.
Yes, sir.
Did you ever see again, Richard Petty scene, did you ever see Officer Mersereau in the, on the driver's side of the suspect vehicle?
I don't think so. I can't say for sure, but I don't think so.
Do you recall whether the windows were tinted in the suspect vehicle?
I do not.
I'm going to ask the opposite question. Do you recall whether the windows were clear in the suspect vehicle?
I don't recall.
No recollection.
No,
Right,
no,
that's
sir.
fair. Did you tell FDLE, did you do an interview with FDLE?
Yes, sir.
Did you tell FDLE that you heard contrasting gun sounds at the Richard Petty scene?
Object to form.
I'm not sure. Do we have the FDLE?
We do. Have you personally reviewed the FDLE report?
No, sir.
When the FDLE conducted it, did the FDLE conduct an interview of you in this matter?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
I don't. We went and we interviewed. We met an investigator with FDLE. It was at the dead end of Ventures Boulevard. I don't really recall too much detail. I know that he was a good interviewer, but that's about it.
What do you mean by that?
Just that he, for the time lapse of when we did the actual interview, he was very good at bringing forth details.
Did you have a lawyer or union representative with you at that interview?
Oh, yes, sir, I did.
What other interviews have you given about this case?
I think these are the only two.
The FDL interview and the deposition?
Yes, sir.
Did you testify at any trial or hearings related to Marvin Jones?
No, sir.
See if you can find it. There's his interview, but I don't think it's in there. I can look at my notes in a minute. Do you know what jacked is? And I think it's JACK, the number 3 backward, or the number 3 instead of E, D is.
Jack 3D.
Yes.
So workout supplement.
Okay. Is that what it's Jack 3D instead of jacked?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's what I've always heard it called.
Okay. Have you ever used that?
I don't think so.
I'm gonna ask the same questions, probably be the same answer. Have you ever used that on hours where you were working as a police officer?
Check
No.
the form, go ahead.
No, sir.
Okay. Were you aware that Officer Mersereau had Jack 3D in his patrol car?
Check the form.
No, sir.
Okay. Are you aware of officers of the city of Daytona Beach using Jack 3D while on shift?
Check the form.
Just one more time on the question. Am I aware of
Them
any
using
officers?
Any officers using it on shift?
I've heard of it once or twice.
Why would they do that?
Check the form.
Yeah, I can't answer for them, but I would imagine it's they're struggling to stay awake, or they're tired, or they work out on duty, or any number of reasons.
Right. Do you know firsthand of anybody that's used jacked while on shift at City of Daytona Beach?
Check the form.
Not specifically. I'm sure it was the same person that told me, but I don't recall.
Okay. You recall having a conversation at some point about somebody using jacked 3D or jacked while on shift,
Yes,
Check the form.
yes, sir.
but you don't recall that name as we sit here today?
No, for whatever reason, Officer Matt Lyles is sticking out in my head, but I can't say for sure.
Okay. Are there any policies, procedures, regulations, conversations you've had with superiors about the use of supplements while on shift?
Check the form.
No, none that I've seen.
Do officers use, or have you ever used or consumed a 5-hour energy type product while on shift?
Check the form, go ahead.
Yes,
Okay.
exactly that.
What other type? I'm going to call them a supplement.
Okay.
There's everything from Red Bull to Monster to, in my, kind of understanding of this, the stimulant world, to 5-hour energy, to stuff you get at a supplement store, right?
Yes, sir.
Check the form.
To stuff I guess they sell at truck stops.
Check the form.
What of those products have you used personally to stay awake or be stimulated on shift?
Object to form.
Just a 5-hour energy, maybe a monster once, I don't know.
Okay. Do you know whether City of Daytona Beach Police has any policies and procedures regarding the use of any of those beverages or stimulants or drinks or whatever, however you want to classify them?
Object to form.
None that I've seen.
Okay. I think I asked this. You've never used Jack 3D or Jacked?
You did ask that. No, I don't believe I've used that brand.
Okay. Are you aware of any conversations you've had or any internet things you've read about adverse effects on officers from Jacked?
Object to form.
You ever had that conversation or read anything about that?
No,
Form.
sir.
Okay. Is it something you think you would use on shift?
Object to form.
No, I'm not a big caffeine guy, which is a 5-hour energy is, I basically drink half of that thing. I'm not a caffeine guy.
Why not?
Object to form.
I get my caffeine from iced tea. I don't need anything further.
What does too much caffeine do to you personally?
Object to form.
I don't think that I've ever experienced too much caffeine. I don't know what it would do.
Very good. The hands up comment, did you ever see whether or not anyone in the suspect vehicle complied or didn't comply? Could you tell whether that command was obliged?
Form.
No, sir.
Other than hands, show me your hands. That's what I meant. Let me rephrase that. After Officer Mersereau shouted, however he expressed it, hands, show me your hands, could you tell whether anybody in the suspect vehicle obliged to that command?
Object to form.
No, sir.
Did Officer Mersereau tell you at any point whether or not anybody in the suspect vehicle obliged that command?
No, sir.
Were there any other statements or exclamations other than hands, show me your hands, and then something about they just shot at me that you recall from Officer Mersereau at the Richard Petty scene?
No, sir.
Okay. What about Officer Dill? Any statements made by him that you recall
No, sir.
at that scene?
No, sir.
The other officer was, who was the other officer?
Carter?
Carter. I
Rob
think.
Carter?
Yeah. Any statements by him that you recall?
No, sir.
Any statements by anybody in the suspect vehicle that you recall?
No, sir.
Okay. When is the first time you laid eyes on anybody in the suspect vehicle? First time you saw a person?
On the flight line scene, I stopped my car right where Richard Petty meets flight line, to where I was still on Richard Petty but could look down flight line. I thought that Mr. Jones was going to come back towards us and bring the fight again, so I wanted to keep my engine block there for cover. When I looked down the street, I could see him running from the vehicle.
Where is it?
I,
Oh, you didn't see it?
that's the interview.
Okay.
You don't.
Bear with me. Do you know how many shots in total? How many gunshots or gun discharges at the petty scene you heard in total?
No, sir.
Have you interviewed Marvin Jones at any point? Did you interview Marvin Jones at any point after this incident?
No, sir.
Did you have any conversations with him at this incident?
No, sir.
Okay, at any point?
No.
Okay. Did he make any statements to you or around you?
No, sir. None that I could hear.
And did you make any statements or exclamations to or at him?
No, sir.
Did you overhear any other communications between either Officer Mersereau and Mr. Jones or Officer Dill and Mr. Jones or any other officers?
Form.
Towards the very end, I could hear Officer Mersereau shouting at him, because you just tried to shoot me, or because you just shot at me. And that was while Mr. Jones was being taken into custody.
Okay, let's do this. Let's travel to, we got to get to the next scene, okay?
Okay.
So take me through the point where Officer Mersereau is on the ground
Yes, sir.
and things flow to, I guess, towards Emory Riddle,
Okay.
or flight line, as you put it.
Form. Good.
Officer Mersereau stood up from falling down and said, "That motherfucker just shot at me." I got back into my car. Officer Dill got back into his car. And the suspect vehicle made a left turn, essentially, and left the scene and began traveling eastbound on Richard Petty. Myself and Officer Dill got behind the vehicle, obviously lights and siren activated, got on the radio, advised shots fired, vehicles traveling eastbound, whatnot. Pursuit was authorized, and due to the curve of the road, basically eastbound Richard Petty turns into almost like a southbound Richard Petty. And the vehicle made still what would be a southbound turn on flight line, right turn for purposes of later.
Thank you.
A right turn onto flight line, and that's when I stopped my car at the intersection of Richard Petty and flight line.
With what, for what reason?
Again, I thought Mr. Jones was going to bring the fight back to us. I was waiting for him to stop and come back towards us. And when I realized that he did not, I left from behind my vehicle cover and went towards Mr. Jones
Okay. With what intention?
to apprehend Mr. Jones.
Okay. Let me back up. The order that you gave me the story in was that you got in your car, the people got in their cars, and then Mr. Jones or the suspect vehicle drove off. I assume that wasn't the order that it happened.
Well, he began to drive off as Officer Mersereau says, "That motherfucker just shot at me." The vehicle begins to drive away. I get in my car, Officer Dill gets in his car, whatever order of those two officers getting in the car.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
I just want to clarify that you guys weren't getting in your car before the suspect vehicle.
Yes,
drove away.
sir.
That would make
No,
sense,
sir.
right?
No, sir. Yeah.
I'm peeling. So, what was at that point, did you notice any inhibition in operability, if that's even a word, in mobility of the suspect vehicle? Were the tires a problem? Was it having issues with operation at that point?
Form.
I don't even recall. I know that the pursuit would not have been considered a high-speed pursuit, but I don't know if that I noticed a fault or mechanical malfunction with the vehicle.
Okay. At what point did you become aware that the passenger in the suspect vehicle had been shot?
As basically everything's almost coming to an end now, Mr. Jones is already on the ground, and I'm getting ready to run around the fence line to Officer Mersereau and Mr. Jones. And I get up to the suspect vehicle as I'm running past it, and Officer Dill is giving commands to the passenger, and I stop. We tell her to put her hands up, and I come around to the passenger side of the vehicle, and that's when she had her hands up, and she said, "Please help! I've just been shot, and I'm pregnant." Or
Something like that.
yeah, I was gonna say.
Going back in the kind of commute from Petty to Emery-Riddle, you indicated somebody reported shots fired. Do you recall who that was?
I don't know specifically. I
What-
think it was Officer Dill. The audio tapes would tell better than me.
Certainly. And you indicated you obtained some sort of authorization. What was that?
For a pursuit.
Okay. Why is that important? Why is that protocol?
Our supervisor always has to approve a pursuit. We
Okay.
can't.
Does the city of Daytona Beach mandate or do officers do RTR or resistance reports?
Officers don't really do them. The supervisor does the use of force reports.
Okay. Did you, I think I know the answer too. So did you complete a response to resistance report in this matter?
No, no, sir.
At the Kyle Petty scene, do you have any firsthand evidence before the car pulled off the suspect? Let me strike that. At the Kyle Petty scene, before the suspect vehicle started to drive off, do you have any evidence of any resistance by the subject vehicle?
Check to form. You mean Richard Petty?
The Richard
Sorry,
Petty. I was gonna.
Richard Petty.
His dad.
Yes.
At the Richard Petty scene, any signs of resistance before the vehicle drove away?
Yes.
I didn't get to see anything.
Okay. Driving away would be resistance.
Right.
Okay. And running away from officers would be resistance.
Yes, sir.
Firing back at officers would be resistance.
Yes, sir.
You saw all three of those things, I imagine, at some point.
Yes, sir.
Did you see Marvin Jones fire back or point a gun in officer's direction?
Right. I don't specifically remember a muzzle flash. Again, this would be on the flight line scene.
Okay.
But I know that he pointed something at Officer Mersereau's windshield.
Okay. That scene is of kind of some factual significance here, but it was after Miss Bailey was shot. So I'm going to kind of fast forward through that
Okay.
just to, for your edification. It's my understanding that at some point, Officer Mersereau shot through his windshield at something.
Right.
Check to form.
Did you see? Were you there for that incident? Did you see that happen?
I didn't have the vantage point to see Officer Mersereau fire out of his windshield. No,
Okay.
sir.
Where were you in relation, or where was your cruiser in relation at that point?
That would be the flight line scene. Again, I was in the roadway on flight line going towards Mr. Jones, and Officer Mersereau and his vehicle came around past me, and Officer Mersereau struck Mr. Jones with his vehicle.
Okay. And after he struck was when he fired?
Yes, sir. Mr. Jones went up onto Officer Mersereau's patrol vehicle, back down. I distinctly remember thinking, oh God, thank God it's over. And Mr. Jones getting right back up, and the fight was on again.
Did you see at that portion whether Mr. Jones was displaying or holding up his firearm?
Not that I could clearly see. I think I remember seeing his arm extended, but I don't recall a firearm.
Petty scene, what time of day was it? What was the daylight situation?
I couldn't say specifically for sure without the report in front of me. It was nighttime. It was darker. The sun had already gone down.
Okay. Are there streetlights?
Yes, sir.
Is it, and invariably if I say, was it well lit, I'll get an objection. Describe how lit it was.
To see bodies and shapes, yes. To identify colors, yes. Movement, if you were to ask me, I don't know. I can't think of a detail small enough, but you could see. It wasn't as bright as this room, but it was regular street lights.
Okay. And I'm going to jump around a lot
Okay.
because I don't do notes so much.
Okay.
Would you agree with me that for shots to be fired from the driver's side window of the suspect vehicle, that a gun would have to extend out of that vehicle for it to be fired at Officer Mersereau?
Objective form.
I wasn't close enough to see the original angles of the car, so I can't say for certain that the gun would go out the window.
Okay, and that's not what I'm asking. To reach where Officer Mersereau was, to fire a gun at Officer Mersereau, where he was located, unless you were shooting through the windshield, wouldn't the gun
Right.
have to exit the vehicle?
Right.
Objective form.
I don't know the angle of again the depth perception of where I was. I couldn't tell you if the car was like this or the defendant's car was. I can't tell you the angle specifically.
The window to fire a bullet outside of the suspect vehicle, the window would have to be down, correct?
Without shooting through it, yes, sir.
Okay. Do you have any knowledge of whether the window was down, the driver's side window was down at any point during the night?
Objective form.
I don't recall.
Do you know whether it even functioned?
Objective form.
No, sir.
And what I'm trying to understand and put from your brain into my brain so that I understand it is, given the relative angles of the vehicles and a window of a car, it's a terrible one, but what, in fact, it'd probably be the whole thing, but at what point for something, Officer Mersereau was to the right of the suspect vehicle, correct? To the passenger side.
From what I would believe, to the right of Mr. Jones if he was being confronted by Officer Mersereau.
Right.
Objective form.
And if Mr. Jones were to shoot right-handed, he would shoot through a windshield or some portion of the car.
One would
Objective form.
One would believe that that's how you would.
Okay. And to avoid shooting any aspect of the car to get the gun aimed over there, would you agree, or just don't have enough information that the gun would have to exit the car to fire where Officer Mersereau was?
Object to form.
Without hitting glass or any other object within the car. I would imagine if the angles were lined up properly. I mean, this is a lot of speculation. Yeah, one would believe that's.
But let me explain this. Like, I'm 100% speculating because I'm not there, which is why depositions are important, because
Yes, sir.
you guys are the best witnesses we have. You are the furthest from speculation that we have, although you still may have to speculate because you don't remember. And I don't want you to testify about anything you don't remember. And that's just as important. But, you know, kind of like opening a bowl of cereal and pouring it out, I need to know what we know and what we don't know. And so what I'm trying to figure out is if there's any way that Marvin Jones, from the angles, from where the cars were parked, as you saw them, can fire that gun without it exiting the vehicle and pointing back towards, you know, the other lane of traffic, the other eastbound lane of traffic.
Object to the form of the question, lack of foundation and predicate.
Still answer this one. Yeah, I don't know with the angles. From what it looked like, I would believe that Officer Mersereau would be to the right of him. I can't confirm. I wasn't in Mr. Jones's seat.
Okay. With the lighting as it was, would you have been able to see a gun held out on top of the vehicle, on top of the suspect vehicle?
Object to form.
I don't recall if it was that light out or if it was that well lit there.
What was going on with the traffic at that point? The other traffic?
Object to form. Go ahead.
I don't believe that there was much traffic on Richard Petty at all at that time. I don't recall seeing any civilian vehicles or anything.
Were any officers, including yourself, on essentially traffic control duty to halt traffic on Richard Petty?
Object to form.
I don't know.
Okay. Do you know where Officer Mersereau's bullets fired at the Richard Petty scene wound up?
Object to form.
No, sir.
Okay. Do you recall hearing any bullets or any other projectile striking class at the Richard Petty scene?
Object to form.
No, sir. I don't know the results of any of the investigation
Fair
at all.
enough. I'm just asking what you heard. If you heard
Like a glass
the bullet
break?
hit the glass break.
No, sir.
Okay. At some point, I believe Marvin Jones was attributed as taking credit or having shot, somehow saying that he may have shot or being attributed to having shot Miss Bailey. Were you there, or do you know anything about that?
I remember in something of Mr. Jones telling Officer Mersereau something, and it's been too long. I don't recall any of it now.
Okay. Here's this opposite of mine. I'm trying to pull it down. So. Why did you think Mr. Jones was going to stop his vehicle when he turned on Flightline Road?
To me, I thought he already brought the fight to us once. What's going to stop him from doing it again?
Okay.
You know.
Was there a sunroof or a moonroof on the suspect vehicle, the suspect vehicle?
I do not recall.
I think I asked this in a bunch of different ways, but because Mr. Latour is asking me to ask it. Did you see an arm extend? Did you see anything? I know I didn't ask it that way. Extend out of the suspect vehicle.
No, sir, not that I recall.
We've been going for about an hour. Let's take a couple-minute break,
Sure.
and then we should do one more session and be done, okay?
Time is 2:16, we're off record. Take number 2 to deposition, we're back on the record at 2:24 p.m.
Do you recall, again, Richard Petty scene, do you recall seeing muzzle flashes from Mersereau's gun?
I actually don't know.
Okay. What was it? I can't read my own writing that I've heard from your question you wanted me to ask. You could see Jones's vehicle at all points at the Petty scene, correct?
Objective form.
I don't recall if I could see the entire thing, but more than likely, my memory leads me to believe I saw at least the front half of the vehicle.
Okay. Oh, I know what that was. When we first started, one of the first discussions we had was, about the two vehicles facing each other, and you stated something to the effect of, I couldn't imagine, or I wouldn't suspect that Officer Mersereau would cross between the two vehicles. Do you recall something to that effect?
Yes, sir.
Form.
Why not?
Just because Officer Mersereau is pretty tactical, that would put him at a pretty great danger to go between the cars.
The car could hit it.
Form.
Yes. I can't speak for Officer Mersereau, but I would have a tough time imagining him to do that.
Okay. Do you know whether he went behind the rear of his own cruiser to go to the passenger side of his vehicle, driver's side of suspect vehicle at any point?
I don't recall him going around, though.
Okay. If I say center point, I'm going to use the center point of each vehicle, meaning, as kids, the back seat used to have a hump, right? And that hump was right in the middle, and you and your sister could fight over whoever was on the hump. So using that hump, the middle of both seats, the console, whatever you want to call the middle point of a motor vehicle, are we fair that we're talking about an imaginary line that travels from bumper to bumper right down the center?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did Officer Mersereau ever cross that imaginary middle line of his own vehicle that
Check.
you recall?
Objective form. Like a foundation predicate.
I couldn't say for sure.
Okay. Do you have any recollection of Officer Mersereau crossing or walking by where his license plate would be?
Objective form.
No, sir.
What kind of cars are your squad cars?
Ford Crown Victorias.
I assume the front of every Ford has a Ford logo.
Yeah.
Do you recall independently whether Officer Mersereau crossed the Ford logo on the front of his squad car at any point?
Objective form.
No, sir.
Okay. Same type questions regarding the suspect vehicle. Do you recall Mersereau ever going back to where the tag of the suspect vehicle would have been?
Objective form.
The tag of the suspect, the rear
Correct.
tag? No, sir.
You never went over there, right?
I don't think so.
Okay. You don't think so, or you know so?
Objective form.
I can't say I know so, but I'm 99.99% sure. that he did not go by the rear of the vehicle on the Richard Petty scene.
Do you understand that it's Marvin Jones' position that he left that scene because his girlfriend, the passenger, had been shot?
Object to form.
That's his side of the story.
Okay.
Object to form.
I can't speak for Mr. Jones. That wouldn't be my impression, but okay.
What evidence do you have, what firsthand evidence do you have to counter that?
Object to form.
He's taken the wrong way to the hospital. The hospital's right across the street. All he had to do was make another left-hand turn, and he would have been going towards the hospital.
Was the hospital visible in that lighting condition from where you are?
There's a Corsair Boulevard or Avenue, and it has a multi-story building like this one. And then after that, I think there's a gap where there's a soccer field. You can see the hospital from that intersection, but I can't say where Mr. Jones was looking. If he's familiar with the area, I don't know anything about
Things
him.
we don't know,
Right.
okay. I assume you've had law enforcement training of the protocols related to firearms.
Yes, sir.
Is there protocol that discusses whether you shoot to or from a moving vehicle, or a motor vehicle, excuse me?
Object to form.
It's advised not to shoot at a moving motor vehicle.
Is it advised to shoot at, is there an advisory, as you recall it, about whether to shoot into a stationary motor vehicle?
Object to form.
I'm not specifically sure, but I believe the wording is a moving vehicle.
Were you there when Miss Bailey was taken out of the car?
I don't think I was. I know we were there. I know I saw her. I don't remember her exiting the vehicle.
Okay. She indicates to some extent of being drugged out by, I believe, by her hair. Do you have any recollection about whether that happened or didn't happen?
Form.
No, sir.
There was some conversation, I think, in the media or elsewhere about the term suicide by cop. What does that mean to you, if anything?
Form.
To me, that would mean that someone wants to die, and either doesn't have the means or would prefer the use of a firearm, and they don't have access to a firearm. Any way that a cop would end their life for them.
Hideous thing to do. That said and stricken, did you have any comments or opinions or make any statements related to that was Mr. Jones' intent here? Or did you overhear anything related to that being his intent here?
Object to form.
No, sir.
Okay. If Officer Mersereau was not fired upon, was his use of force correct under the protocols that you're aware of with City of Daytona Beach Police?
Object to form.
If he sees a firearm and he can identify it as a firearm or anything he intends that he believes is a firearm and he fears for his life, then yes.
Okay. Did he ever describe what he saw at the petty scene to you?
No, sir, we haven't really discussed it to this day.
Is Officer Mersereau still with the force?
Yes, sir.
It's my understanding he was not with the force for some period.
Form,
Yes, sir.
What's your understanding of that?
form,
He was in an altercation with a fellow employee who's also no longer with us.
Were you there?
No, sir.
Were you friends of any of the involved officers?
form,
At work acquaintances.
Okay. Are you aware of any, before this incident, for this whole night, are you aware of any disciplinary proceedings related to or begun upon Officer Mersereau?
form,
The night being of the shooting.
Correct.
No.
Since the shooting, same question.
form,
The altercation with the other employee.
Okay. What is your understanding of that altercation?
form,
I wasn't even working that night. All I know is that there was an altercation in the locker room, and the other employee hit his emergency radio button, is what I've heard.
Okay. Do you know whether Officer Mersereau was using Jack during that encounter, or
Form.
Jack 3D?
No idea.
Did you do, and obviously I know some answers to these questions, but I asked just so that they're on the record. Did you do any investigation based upon any information you had into either the tag of the vehicle or the occupants before the initial shooting began?
Excuse me. No. No, sir.
Did Officer Mersereau make any calls for backup before he got out of his car at the Petty Boulevard?
For additional officers?
Yes.
I think the call was dispatched, and we had a pretty good shift at the time where there were people coming already.
Was there any organization at the Petty scene whereby the officers that responded attempted to triangulate or otherwise jointly work to approach the suspect vehicle?
objection, form,
No, there wasn't time, and that would produce crossfire.
Was there any communication by Officer Mersereau to you guys about what he intended to do?
No, sir.
Either in person or by radio?
No, sir.
Could he communicate by radio?
Yes, sir.
Do you know how many times Mersereau fired during the entire evening?
object to form,
No, sir.
There's some discussion in this case that Mersereau was teased about the amount of shots that he missed, that missed their target. Were you a part of any of that, or did you overhear any of the teasing of Officer Mersereau?
Objection form.
No, sir.
Specifically, there's some comments about being sucky at shooting, or that they had target practice tomorrow and he needed to be there. Do you recall any comments to that effect?
Objection
sir.
form.
Do you recall hearing Marvin Jones or anybody else called any racial epithets, including but not limited to the N-word or spick?
No, sir.
It's our understanding that according to the FDLE, Marvin Jones only successfully fired 2 .22 caliber rounds from his gun. Do you know where those would have been fired, at what location in Daytona or Daytona Beach?
Form.
No, sir.
Did you receive a reward or accommodation for this evening, related to this evening?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that, please.
I received a Medal of Valor. Medal of Valor.
What is that?
It's defined in our lobby. I don't know. Courageous. I don't know.
Is it something like the military that you wear, or is it something you just put on a shelf, or
It comes with the little thing for your uniform.
do you wear it to this day?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you ever wear it?
I have before.
Why don't you wear it?
Right now, it doesn't go on a K-9 uniform. But before that, it's I wouldn't wear it on regular patrol, just your dress uniform, or if there's tourists in town, or nothing specific.
And was Officer Mersereau awarded at that same ceremony?
Yes, sir.
What's your understanding of what he received?
I believe he received a Medal of Honor.
Is it a part of protocol to utilize and maintain distance and cover from any resistant and potentially violent subjects you encounter?
Object to form.
Use the first couple words to describe how protocol or what?
Utilize and maintain distance and cover from any resistance and potentially violent subjects you intend to arrest.
Form.
I would say it might be part of training, where training is advising you to do this to be safe. Like I said, Josh is a pretty tactical guy. If there's cover available, he's going to use it. If there's concealment available, he's going to use it when time deems necessary.
What is tunnel vision as you're trained at City of Daytona Beach Police?
Form.
Tunnel vision outside of Daytona Beach Police, tunnel vision is exactly that, where it's almost as if you're driving through a tunnel. You're seeing what's in front of you at the end of the road, and there's essentially a wall as if you're driving through a tunnel.
Has that concept been applied to you in any of your training as a law enforcement officer?
Form.
Training, I don't recall anything.
Are you aware of what the term time compression means?
Form.
Not exactly.
Did you ever hear Officer Mersereau request or demand that anyone in the subject vehicle put down their weapon?
No, sir.
At the time of the incident, are you aware of whether or not anyone in the subject vehicle had a concealed carry permit or was otherwise licensed to carry a firearm?
No, sir.
At the time of Officer Mersereau firing upon the suspect vehicle, was the suspect vehicle attempting to flee or evade capture or arrest?
Form.
It didn't appear that way to me. No, it's not how my memory serves me.
Other than Officer Mersereau, other than the officers we've discussed, were there any other pedestrians or other people in the immediate vicinity
Form.
that you recall?
No.
Have you had any civilian complaints?
Yes, sir.
Tell me about that.
Check to form.
Have you had any prior to this incident?
One about towing a car from a crash scene.
Okay. Have you had any, let me stick to use of force. Have you had any civilian, internal, or inmate complaints?
Period.
Period. Use of force.
Check to form. Go ahead.
I was a witness to a second use of force other than the shooting incident.
Okay, tell me about that briefly.
Myself and another officer went over a chain link fence into a high crime apartment complex. Subjects began running. My partner went off in your direction. I chased another guy this direction. He ended up hitting that male while I was in pursuit of another male. I detained this guy, found narcotics on him. He was under arrest. He got passed off to another person on our unit. I went back to check with the original officer who went over the fence with me. The man had a small cut on his face. The officer and that male were in a conversation about how the male just wanted to go home, and we left. And later I found out that that officer had struck that male, and I was in trouble for not reporting it as a use of force.
Was that officer in any way involved with this incident?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you make any report related to use of force against Officer Mersereau in this incident?
Form.
Say that. I'm sorry.
In that incident, you were essentially censored or complained about because of failure to report a use of force, fair?
Yes, sir, for the second one.
Did you do such a report in this incident
Form.
regarding Officer Mersereau's use of force?
No, sir, I didn't do any paperwork in this, I don't believe. I don't think I wrote a supplement. I think it was all interviews.
You took Officer Mersereau's word that he had been fired upon to continue this matter and ultimately try to apprehend somebody in the subject vehicle. Is that fair?
Form.
Coupled with the fact of the two different sounding guns and knowing that Officer Mersereau didn't have two guns in two hands.
And two different sounding guns at the petty scene.
Yes, sir.
Okay. You don't recall if you've testified or made a statement inconsistent with that to this point.
Form.
I believe the words in this were an exchange of gunfire.
Okay. Was your statement with the FDLE recorded?
Yes, sir, it was.
Okay. Did you review that recording before your testimony today?
No, sir, I have not.
Have you been named in any lawsuits related to your work as a law enforcement officer?
No, sir.
I kind of skipped some of the appetizer to get into the main course. Tell me about your educational background and training, please.
I have a high school diploma and some college education. And then I have the police academy, in-house training from there. And I think it's like a total of 1,000 to 1,200 hours.
What is your year of birth?
1985.
Okay. That would make you 31.
Yes, sir.
And tell me about cities of residence. Where all of you live?
Well, except for where he lives right now, he's not telling you that.
This the current city. That's fine. Where else have you lived?
I was born in Virginia Beach and moved to Ormond Beach when I was 1, and that's all I've ever known.
Okay. Plan to leave?
No, sir.
Plan to change jobs?
No, sir. Surprising enough.
You guys are under fire.
A little bit.
Brent, you got anything? I know you do. I know you well enough. I'm not asking that. I know the answer to that. Did you witness Mr. Jones or anybody in the suspect subject vehicle commit a crime prior to gunshots being fired?
Fleeing and eluding.
In what context? Because Officer
Mersereau had the lights and sirens activated.
Fair enough. How long did they, for lack of a better term, flee and elude? How long did Mersereau have his lights and sirens on before ultimately the vehicle came to rest?
Right.
Check the form.
Time or distance are you looking for?
You should have known that.
Yeah, right. I believe I saw, from where I saw them at the intersection of Midway and Richard Petty to the eventual stop, probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 seconds in a matter of Quarter mile.
Let's talk about kind of the end of the second scene. I've kind of glossed over the second scene. Some lawyers take longer depositions than others. I try to wrap things up in 2 hours. But who shot Marvin Jones?
Check the form.
I have no idea.
Do you know if you shot him?
I don't think so.
Do you know if Officer Mersereau shot him?
Check the form.
I don't know.
I don't mean shot at him, I mean hit him.
Right. I don't know.
Do you know if Officer Dill shot him?
I don't know.
Did you fire at him?
I did.
Did Officer Dill fire at him?
He did.
Did Officer Mersereau fire at him?
He did.
Do you know how many times he was struck?
No, sir.
Okay. Other than that deposition, have you had your deposition taken before?
This one and then the FDLE in reference to this case, in reference to any case?
Right.
Absolutely.
Okay. You've probably had some traffic depositions and, you know, where you're just a witness to some sort of
I try to avoid the traffic
Civilian.
side.
Right.
But yeah,
Okay.
there's some criminal depositions.
how many
open up there.
times, probably a better question, how many times have you had your deposition taken?
Safe to say, maybe 100?
Oh, you're a pro.
Yeah.
You can strike that.
Narcotics unit.
Right, makes sense.
But let the record be known.
Right.
You use the word pro.
No, and this is informal, but you know, I know when we're gonna strike some of my little silliness. It's my understanding Officer Mersereau fired his firearm anywhere from 23 to 40 something times. Do you know how many times he struck a target that he was intending to strike?
Form.
No, sir.
Was Mr. Jones ultimately subdued?
Yes, sir.
Was he subdued because he was he incapacitated? Do you recall whether he was, you may get where I'm going here and I gotta ask the question right, but how did it end?
He ended up
Check the form.
running through a parking lot and ultimately just falling, collapsing.
From gunshots or from tripping or?
I have no idea.
You don't know, okay. And I think I asked you, you said you didn't know how many times he was struck?
No, sir.
Okay. Did you have to go hands-on with Mr. Jones at any point?
No, sir.
Mersereau? Same question.
Did Officer Mersereau go hands-on with him? Yes.
In what way? That you witnessed?
I saw Officer Mersereau basically kneel next to him or on top of him to apprehend him.
Okay. Did he handcuff him?
I don't know. I wasn't close enough.
Okay. Did Dill go hands-on that you saw?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you know who Mirandized Mr. Jones?
No, sir.
At any point, as far as you are concerned, was Miss Bailey the subject of any criminal investigation or under arrest?
Form.
I didn't observe any criminal violations.
Do you know who called or radioed for ambulance or rescue?
I think I did.
Okay. At what point?
Immediately upon seeing her and realizing she was shot.
Could you tell she had been struck by a firearm?
I think I saw blood, but I'm not sure.
Would you agree or disagree that Officer Mersereau was within 2 or 3 feet of the subject vehicle when he began walking backwards?
Form.
I don't know. I would think I would disagree. 2 to 3 feet is pretty close.
You think it was further away than 2 to 3 feet at its closest point with the subject vehicle?
Check the form.
I think so.
Okay. Do you know whether Officer Mersereau was tripping at the time he fired his firearm at any point?
Form, asked and answered.
I think his firing was done, but I can't say for sure.
Okay.
I think he was backpedaling to find cover at that point.
The FTLE report indicates you fired one .40 caliber round from your department-issued Glock. Do you recall that?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall where you fired that? Where, at what scene?
Flight line.
I assume that would have been fired in pursuit of Mr. Jones,
Yes, sir.
and you don't know whether that struck,
I don't know.
because multiple people were firing upon it.
Right.
Is it legal to possess a firearm in the parking lot of a parking garage of an airport?
Form.
If you're permitted to, I would imagine in the parking lot would be all right.
At any point, did Officer Dill obstruct your view at the petty scene?
No, sir.
At any point, did Officer Dill's vehicle obstruct your view at the petty scene?
I don't think so.
At any point, did Officer Carter obstruct your view at the petty scene?
No, sir.
At any point, did Officer Carter's vehicle obstruct your view at the petty scene?
I don't think so.
At any point, did were there any other officers at the scene that would have obstructed your view?
No, I don't think so.
Were there any other officers' vehicles that would have obstructed your view at the petty scene?
No, sir.
Compared to your vantage point, what was Officer Dill's vantage point,
Objective form.
as best as you recall where he was?
I can't speak for Officer Dill.
Okay. Where was he in proximity to you at the petty scene?
Objective form.
Close enough for conversation.
Okay.
Close enough for me to turn and ask him, were those gunshots?
Okay. As close as we are today?
Objective form.
I don't know.
Okay. Closer than you in the video camera?
I would imagine.
It's about a car length or more between you and the video camera.
Yeah, like I said, I would imagine. I don't remember yelling that to Officer Dill.
Depends on what kind of car it is.
It's true.
Lincoln.
Yeah. At any time during this incident, did your gun or service revolver jam or misfire?
No, sir.
Do you recall whether Mersereau's did?
Form.
No, sir, I don't.
Mr. Latour. Skip that. Is there anything that I haven't asked you that you feel would give me or give me a better understanding of what happened that night? Is there anything that you're like, well, if he had asked this, he'd understand what's going on?
Check the form.
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay. Did I give you, do you still have the FDLE? Yeah, that portion. Let me see that real quick. I'm right at my 2 hours. Are you gonna have questions, Bruce, I assume?
No.
Okay. Just gonna use you to stall, but I'll just stall on my own.
I don't have to be at work till 8 tonight.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah,
So we got time.
we got time.
Just for my edification, these are diagrams that have been a part of the FDLE file. Bruce, do you want to? Do these appear to be, I'm showing you 3 photos, ignore the writing on that. Excuse me to sneeze? Okay.
No.
Do you see where, on any of these photos or all of these photos, tell me which, do you see where the petty incident happened?
I believe 2 of the 3 pictures here.
Which 2?
The top one with the incident diagram interview font on it, that sheet will have one, and then on the one sheet with the 2 pictures, it'll be the one on the right, the picture on the right,
And
or I
there's-
guess upside down, the one without the parking lot involved
Okay.
in it.
That would be at the Emory-Riddle campus, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So that would have been the secondary scene?
Correct.
Okay.
The other picture on the same page.
There's some markings on that. Did you make those markings?
I believe I did. If
And that might not be from yours. It could be somebody else's
Yeah,
markings.
I don't
and you
wanna-
made this marking. So I don't want
Yeah, I don't wanna
want to
say
paint you in
that.
that corner because I don't want to take time to look it up.
okay.
But tell me, about where, ignore all the markings on there. Just point to me where you recall the 2 vehicles, coming at rest at the petty scene.
Okay.
Check the form.
I think on this one, I'm looking at it correctly, or actually it would go this way to where this would be eastbound on the right of the picture. Almost where those markings are, I think just maybe, that's almost not even worth mentioning. Maybe like 10 feet closer to the west of the picture. Somewhere right, those markings are fairly accurate.
There's an E over here, but would that be west as you're oriented?
Actually, yeah, this is going to be the airport runway at the bottom. So I remember the scene this way. Yeah, no, that
Is east right on there, or E? or is it?
I don't think
That's
it's
why I
right.
hate. That's why I hate them.
Yeah, no, I don't think those are the east and
Okay.
west. I think are supposed to be the other way.
Okay.
I think midway is over here.
You're pointing in the area where the hole punch is.
Yeah, to the right of the picture. But now I'm seeing buildings over here. Yeah, I'm not sure. I thought this was the airport runway up top here.
Can you do it better with this one?
Let's see.
That gives us more of a city view.
Okay.
Now we're going to lose scale, but
Yeah, right.
approximately where did it happen?
Okay. See that white line there?
Correct.
Almost if you follow that up to where it intersects with Richard Petty right here, right at like the start of the curve is where I remember.
That line is a runway, you said?
I can't say for
Okay.
sure.
It's some portion of the airport or airport authority.
Correct.
And what is this right here?
Can I put a picture
Yes.
closer here? Looks like part of the Daytona International Speedway track,
That's kind of what I'm thinking.
in between like turns 3 and 4 there.
Okay. So, orient me. This would be east or west?
This would be west.
Where on the side where the speedway is.
Correct. The speedway is to the west of the Richard Petty scene.
Okay.
And this should be the mall.
So ultimately, the Atlantic Ocean is somewhere
Correct,
over here where the
correct.
table is. Okay. And the vehicles would have been headed east.
Eastbound towards the Mersereau.
Lincoln does a 180 spins facing west in the eastbound lane.
Yeah, more or less 180, more than 180, less than 360.
Okay. I assume that nobody documented those with photos. You weren't out there taking photos at that scene.
Of the Richard Petty scene? No, the vehicles moved.
We'll attach those as plaintiff's exhibit 1, just for identification purposes. Were you injured in any way in this incident?
No, sir.
Did you have any injuries that you're aware of or ailments going into this incident before it happened?
No, sir.
Brent? Okay, that's all I have. Thank you for your time.
No questions. He'll reserve reading and signing.